Of course, it was another week, wasn't it, where there have been some other suggestions as to how we can deal with the cost of living crisis, with the energy crisis, etc. And Shadow Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds, actually, was forced to backtrack. He did one of those U-turns that we've become so aware of now, talking about the idea of rationing UK energy.
Yes, after appearing to suggest that he supported the rationing of power supplies in the UK. All this comes amid spiking energy prices and possible further increases in wholesale prices that could take place if European nations decide to give up on Russian oil and gas. So joining us now in the studio to discuss this is Andy Mayer, Chief Operating Officer at the Institute for Economic Affairs. Thank you for joining us. I mean, I get there's been a bit of a backlash against this, but isn't this, to some extent, the kinds of imaginative and creative policies that we need to be thinking about in terms of how to get out of this energy crisis? This might not necessarily be the solution, but what we currently have is a problem of a complete dearth of ideas when ordinary people are being massively squeezed right now.
Well, the last thing we want at the moment is for the politicians to start believing they need to have extraordinary ideas, because they're terrible at it. And this idea in particular, rationing, it comes fundamentally from the International Energy Agency, who put out a 10-point plan a couple of weeks ago, saying, wouldn't it be brilliant if every country in the world started cutting down on energy use, for example, controlling the way they use their cars and doing more to stay at home rather than go to work. And no, they can't control people's lives at this micro level. This is not a good idea fundamentally.
Well, and tell me if this is a completely bizarre idea, but I had this idea that, remember when we had Eat Out to Help Out? I wondered if perhaps if we had a huge tax cut, but the condition was that ordinary people had to spend the money in the economy to get the economy boosted and growing again. I mean, is that potentially a possible idea, a big tax cut, so that we could actually spend our money and use it on boosting the economy?
Well, a big tax cut would boost the economy, but it obviously depends on the government then cutting spending so that you didn't then have to pay it back in the future. And that's been the whole experience of the pandemic with the furlough scheme, for example. We're paying that back now. National insurance is going up because we spent the money already.
What are you expecting then from Boris Johnson's big energy announcements? I mean, he's going nuclear, but we've got this delay, haven't we, between us actually announcing it and being able to do it?
I don't think we should expect too much on the announcement on Thursday. There could be some excitement in there that will be buried in the detail, which might actually make a big difference. But the headline stuff we do already know. They will try and bring nuclear on stream gradually, although if we look at the detail of that, that's 13 to 17 years away in terms of building even the first one. They will bring onshore and offshore wind back in some form, but we already have big rounds going on for offshore wind, and the onshore decision is really about planning reform.
Right.
And then so it is for solar. And then the fracking decision, they very cleverly kicked down the road for another 3 months, so that any decision taken there will be after the local election.
But this is a fundamental lack of planning and preparation, isn't it, that we're witnessing?
Oh, massive, for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of naivety about net zero and not considering affordability and security of supply in the planning process.
Yeah.
I mean, are we not going to expect any announcements on fracking, do you think? Is that still something that they're still very, very uncomfortable with?
Well, the fracking announcement has been pre-announced, so there will be a review of the scientific evidence as to whether or not it's safe, which is a PR
more
exercise.
Reviews,
More reviews.
Yeah, for 3 months.
Good gosh, there we go. Well, so nothing's happening too quickly. In the short term, then, look, I mean, what can people do or what can people expect? I mean, we're just going to get hammered financially?
Yeah, the prices are going to stay high for some time. And although the price that rise we're expecting in October has come down by £400, it's still a £600 rise. So energy is going to be extremely expensive. And what people will do is respond to that price rise. They will cut their energy use without the government doing a thing. So the rationing is already built into the system.
Yes. OK, that's interesting, actually, isn't it? Yes, the rationing is already built in, I suppose. And also, as you said, people aren't necessarily going to go out as much. So I suppose it's kind of stalling the economy in that sense as well, potentially. But
go
on.
I was just going to ask, I mean, this isn't looking good for Rishi Sunak, though. I mean, he's taken a huge tumble in the polls. I mean, he had this high point in the last couple of years as the big magic money tree guy, and now he's really being hit by it. I saw something on Conservative Home where he is now third to last out of all the cabinet ministers in terms of approval rating.
Well, we call this a Nick Clegg moment. If we recall the career of the Meta chief executive of PR, then he was the most popular politician in Britain right up until the point he won an election, or rather did very well and joined the coalition. And then he actually had to take some real decisions. And Rishi Sunak's temporary popularity is now coming up against the reality of the hard choices he's got to make as Chancellor. And he's carrying the can for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Andy, thank you very much, as always. Andy Mayer, their Chief Operating Officer at the Institute of Economic Affairs, the IEA, not to be mistaken for the, International Energy Agency. That must really grate at you. And the Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan as well, actually. So you're in esteemed company, but there we are. Thank you very much.